especially on a Monday when you've got to go somewhere afterwards. Oh, you've always got to go somewhere. So, what's the weekend been doing for you then, Dave?
The weekend?
Yeah.
Bad for me. Well, Saturday was good. Sunday was terrible. So around Thursday, I started getting coughs and wheezes and sneezes. On Friday, got a little bit worse, but just steadied off. So it was annoying through Saturday. I went to a lacrosse game Saturday afternoon. It was a bit annoying. I was coughing quite a bit, but then Sunday I came home to roost. So my whole Sunday I was inside. The only thing I went out to do is get some cold relief stuff like Neocitrin. That didn't really help. So basically, what it is I'm being tired and I'm coughing a lot, and my ribs are sore from coughing.
Oh, he's got COVID. He's dying of COVID.
I don't think it's COVID. I don't think it's COVID because I've had this before and it hasn't been COVID. You know what? Maybe I will do a test, but I doubt I have COVID.
No, I doubt it too. I doubt it too.
The reason why I know is because my when we were down in Costa Rica, my youngest son's girlfriend, she got a cold, and this is what that is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, probably. I know.
Well, it's the same sort of thing. A messenger. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything too serious, but it's just annoying.
So you went with your kids, did you?
Yeah, well, they're the ones that invited me along.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of my birthday.
Okay. Well, there you go.
We left the day after my birthday.
Okay. All right. Well, belated happy birthday for you on that one. Okay.
Yeah, my second and third boy took me. My oldest boy had already just come back from a vacation. So anyway.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So scientists say that they found the ancestral home of all human beings, and that this basically was an area that was wetlands in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia area. It used to be an area which was the largest lake in Africa, which by the time humans started on their journey 200,000 years ago, it had broken down into kind of huge wetland zone.
Yeah, no, this is a constant argument. Basically, was it the Olduvai Valley, the Rift Valley in Ethiopia, Kenya?
I was just going to say, I was just feeling that the Olduvai Valley, Olduvai Gorge, surely they will be fighting this.
Well, I'm not so sure they'll be fighting it. They will be doing due diligence, though, as scientists do. Now, Lucy was about what? She's about 3 million years old or something like that. Yeah. And she was found in the Olduvai Gorge in the Rift Valley, I think in Ethiopia.
But this is talking about Homo sapiens rather than, other, older human species.
Yeah. So this is, we do know that there was a lot of early hominids in South Africa as well. Remember, too, that it's very, very difficult. Now these folks think they've got it narrowed down that Homo sapiens popped up first in this area, this wetland in and around Zimbabwe, Botswana, etc. I'm not so sure. They feel they've traced back the DNAs and sort of worked it to there. I'm not so sure they're right about that, because typically the story of hominids developing into Homo sapiens was the fact that things were getting drier, that they had to exist more and more on in more and more like the Serengeti Plain type of environment.
Climate change, my man. You're talking climate change by the sounds of it.
Yes, and it had to do more with the continental drift back in those days and volcanic activity, etc. So, what they use typically, the typical story is that we had to come down out of the trees in order to exist a little bit differently, and that's what made us bipedal and all amount of other things. So I don't know how this theory squares with all of that, because it puts us smack dab in a wetland. That then, so about 200,000 years ago, presumably, and there is a disagreement.
A drying wetland, though.
Well, yes, it may have been, but the fact that it was a wetland and the orthodoxy up until now is that didn't happen until after it did dry up. So that was just to get our hominid relatives out of the trees before we even developed into Homo sapiens. Now, the Homo sapien, the hominid, the family tree that we belong on is not a family tree. It's more like a family bush. There's all kinds of these shoots going all over the place that die off. The most recent ones, of course, were Neanderthal and Denisovans. But if you go back further, it's Homo habilis, Homo africanus, so on and so forth. So these are a huge amount of possibilities where we develop from. Are we actually just a better version of Neanderthal, or we must have had some commonality to it because they seem that we were able to mate with Neanderthals. That's why Europeans got at least 2 to 4% of Neanderthal DNA in them. So
I'm always curious as to why would we only exist? Why would we have been created from one area and one area only? That's unusual. That's just not the way that any species develops. They tend to migrate from one species to another. Over a few generations, all across the planet.
I think basically it's just a replacement theory, if you like, in a way.
Yeah.
Homo sapiens followed all the other hominids out of Africa, and after they filled up Africa, basically they moved out of Africa and just replaced the hominids that are already there. I think they were able to follow the hominids that are already there and replace them. I think the hominids, like Neanderthals and Denisovans and Peking man and Java man and all those, sort of led the way, and a more sophisticated hominid called Homo sapien followed them and replaced them.
Yeah, but you see, I think the thing is to be saying, oh, they come from one specific region is incorrect, because I believe that basically due to changing circumstances, what we came from to what we became would have happened across the globe.
They've made a very big claim here that they figured, these are Australian scientists, so they renewed this debate by claiming that to have discovered ancestral home of modern humans. However, now they're gonna take it on the chin for that, because that is what their peers are supposed to do. They're supposed to look at it, find any holes in it, and tell them it's a bunch of rubbish. And if it holds its water, it's okay. If it holds part of its water, it's worth consideration. That's what they do. That's what scientists do. So all this climate change nonsense that we keep hearing about, the people taking sides and all that, the vast majority of climatologists question each other vigorously all the time. But that because of that, imbeciles like Tucker Carlson or I don't know, whatever else Fox News can make light of it. And it seems like, so this is the same sort of thing. You have a theory put forward, and it's sort of being those findings came from a form of mitochondrial DNA, they say. that can be traced back to that point. And if you know all the stuff that when the DNA project for National Geographic and all that, they've been tracing DNA all over the world.
Yeah.
And they're looking for pure strands of DNA, and in order to mark, because so much DNA is being overlap. So looking for certain strands of DNA. And I have a feeling that this is part of what they used to bring it back to South Africa and Zimbabwe and Botswana. But of course, it's under a large challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we shall see. We shall see. There'll be another theory in another 5 years.
So this is the way they did it. Using DNA, the team mapped the oldest known maternal line of humans alive today and found that points back to ancestral homelands of Namibia, Botswana, and into Zimbabwe. Hoping further to pinpoint the ancestral home of humans, the team then used geological, archaeological, and fossil evidence to figure out the area that oh, geez. Through this research, they found the body of water, of course. But like I said before, it counteracts. So say the lake is located south of Zambezi River, known to sustain our ancestors 70,000 years ago. Okay, so basically, there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and this theory will be climbed all over, upside down and backwards. But it's a very good methodology, I think, that they've found. Now, this does not mean, I think, that this was the source of Homo sapiens. Only that they know that they existed there 70,000 years ago. Were they created there 200,000 years ago is the next question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one. All right, let's move on. So Hamas have released the records. All right, let's deal with that one before we actually go there. All right. But God made man in his own image. and made man in his image, and right behind his rib, God made women from the
Thank you, Metaphysical Mike.
Yeah, I think that's about where we'll leave it. Okay, so Hamas have
well, if you've been married long enough, sometimes you think, I want my rib back.
Hamas have released videos of Israeli hostages Keith Siegel and Omri Miran. And I have to say that these pictures that they put out, these guys look as if they look as if there's, they're actually just bodies, not live people.
I think they're real people. I think they are not AI. I think that Hamas knows the power it has with the hostages. Hamas has been taking kind of a shellacking, although they've been fighting back recently and scoring some victories against the IDF, but in large part, they're mostly being crushed. Their territories, the tunnels, everything have been taken over. The IDF, of course, its main mission is to make Gaza a wasteland. The second mission is to get Gaza, in my view. But to get Hamas, I mean. So Hamas has a playing card, and it is the hostages. So as tough as it gets, and I feel that basically the only ones that really care about the hostages really are Hamas, because as long as they have hostages, they have bargaining chips. They have something that they can use to bargain with. They can deal with this. If those hostages go over to the Israelis and get back to the Israelis, then the Israelis are completely without any kind of restraint at all. Already, the Israelis have killed some of the hostages with their bombs. they've killed them
Right,
walking down the street trying to surrender. So the strength that Hamas has is their hostages. And really, would you give up the hostages if you know that that was the thing that was restraining the IDF? I don't think so.
Yeah, the whole thing about the hostage crisis with this has been actually a kind of weird because hostages. I always thought to myself, hey, taking hostages didn't really solve anything. That essentially that wouldn't stop the war necessarily, and in the same way as it didn't stop having Westerners in Baghdad didn't stop the Americans from bombing Baghdad. Having those hostages that Iraq took didn't stop them from bombing Baghdad. Why would that stop Israel from the advances? Because the hostages don't matter in all of this as far as the Israelis concerned.
Yeah, I think it's the Israelis could have made a deal already to bring back the hostages. I don't think they care about the hostages.
They don't.
They care about making Gaza a wasteland. They want to colonize it if they can get away with it. Right now, Netanyahu owns all the cards. He's snubbing Biden. He's snubbing Blinken. He's lifting the middle finger to them, and then he talks about the demonstrations, the pro-Palestinian demonstrations in universities, and said that they should call up the National Guard. This is the president of a different country telling the United States, telling Biden and the governors of each different state that they should bring out the National Guard to get rid of these demonstrators. Seriously? So he's in the driver's seat. He can get away with that, and nobody's criticized him for doing that. So you can see that the power of the Israeli lobby. Everybody's afraid to talk back to them, and the hostages are the thing that Hamas went to get originally. They went to get some hostages. I don't think they knew they were going to be as successful as they were, if you can call it success. But now they have something like about 130 hostages left, and how many of them and they're keeping them alive. As I said before, the Israelis already killed a few of them with their bombs, and they shot those soldiers down dead in the street. At one time, they were Israeli soldiers trying to give themselves up. That's how paranoid the IDF is. So the whole idea that Hamas is going to give up those hostages anytime soon is ridiculous. That is their one source of power. You take those hostages away and you give them back to Israel, then Israel has no restraint at all. Right now, the restraint on Israel is being put on the demonstrators in Israel demanding the hostages come back. So I don't think that Hamas is going to give them all up anytime soon. They made a lot of, when they captured that one Israeli soldier many years ago, they held him for 5 years, and they were able to extract from Israel a lot of concessions. They were allowed, I think they got 1,000 Palestinians out of jail, all kinds of things for one guy, and then they finally got him back. It cost the Israelis a lot of money and time. That's why they came up with the Hannibal Directive, which is sort of the idea that if you have a hostage, you kill him. Kill him before he becomes a hostage for too long. And they've already done that a few times. When but this time they had so many hostages, you can't do that. As we know, in October 7th, the inexperienced IDF soldiers killed a lot of hostages on the way to Gaza in what they thought was the Hannibal Directive. Just kill them all so they can't become hostages and cost us a lot of money. So I don't know, for Hamas to be able to give these guys up, it's their one trump card basically that they can use. It's hard to think of how if they gave them up, it's like saying, okay, come and get us. You don't have to worry anymore.
Well,
All you're going to kill is Palestinians.
You see, in some respects, a peace deal requires the hostages.
Not all.
It is going to require the handover of the hostages, or many of the hostages.
Hamas is in pretty big trouble, of course.
Yeah.
But the Israelis are right. As soon as the food lines start to open up and the food starts getting into Rafah or other places, Hamas is going to be the first one in line to take whatever they please, and that will sustain them. The weapons and all other things are probably still coming in through some of their tunnel networks. They're probably bribing the Egyptian officials at one end of one tunnel, maybe. Who knows? But but the hostages are those things, that little bit of a wall that keeps the IDF from completely losing it, and because they would flatten Rafah in a minute. They know that all they have to do is wait a few months and everybody forgets about it, and wait a year and everybody's looking at other things. There's more news. Everybody will be then looking at Ukraine or China or something like that. So they know the game. They knew the game right from the very beginning when after October 7th, they started saying, 40, 50 babies got their heads cut off and women were raped. That enraged everybody. Even Joe Biden says, I saw the pictures of beheaded babies. Well, there was no beheaded baby. Yeah. None at all. There's a couple of babies killed in crossfire. Tragic enough. But the Israelis knew how to ramp up the dialogue, and they knew that the Western press was too stupid to fact check. And they just went along with it. And they have been going along with Israeli narratives ever since.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah. And the thing is that, I don't know, this whole question about these hostages, how many of them are still alive? We know one or two are, but I don't know. We shall see.
I think that places where they protected them as best as they can, because I said they're their trump card. Yeah. They're that thing. They have the hostages. If Israelis come and bomb indiscriminately here and there, they're going to kill hostages. And the more they kill, the more the government comes under scrutiny. Also, remember that I'm not so sure that Netanyahu wants these hostages back, because as long as the hostages are there, he has the means to continue the war.
Yeah, he
needs the war to continue.
Yeah.
If the war stops, he's out of power. So he has to continue with the war as long as he possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the issue there, isn't it? That as long as the hostages are there, that Netanyahu has some form of power base. That's questionable once they're gone, once they are returned.
Sure, because if the hostages come back and there's a peace deal, okay, we'll give you back the hostages for peace. There's going to be a lot of Netanyahu won't like that at all. He probably said, "No, keep the hostages. I don't care about them. I want to flatten the rest of."
But he can't say on public television that he doesn't care about them.
Well, he doesn't give a shit about them. Sorry about the word.
I grant you that he doesn't, but he can't say that. He can't say that to the press.
No. His objectives are the ends justify the means, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's why they came up with the Hannibal Directive in the first place. It's better to sacrifice one of ours than to have a hostage they can use against us. A dead Israeli doesn't cost them as much as one that's a captive.
Yep. All right. Anything else on that?
Only it's getting dirtier and stupider all the time. I am very, very. You know what? There was I saw a program recently where it said all the presidents up until now have had a thumb on Israel. It tells them what they can and can't do. Yeah. Right now, Israel has so much power in the Congress that I think they own over half of the congressmen. I think Mike Schumer, who was the speaker of the minority speaker in the House, he he gets $101,000 from them for his campaign. Plus, what AIPAC will do is campaign against your opponent for you as well. So they'll give you money to bolster they'll give you endorsement. And then if your opponent, then they'll campaign against your opponent. They tell you what to do, what to say, all the things you need to say. So this is outside interference in the United States. And as I said, Netanyahu was brash enough to go on and say, "What's the matter with you? Get the National Guard out. Get those students off the, those demonstrating students who are doing what they're allowed to do by Constitution. Get rid of them. Push them off campus. Get your National Guard out." Seriously? Imagine if Canada did that.
Yeah.
Hey, United States, get your National Guard out there. Come on, get them out there. There's anti-Canadian demonstrators there. Get them out.
Yeah.
That would go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So talking about dirty and stupid, right? Dozens of men in Italy are actually seen presenting fascist salutes to honor the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini on the 70th anniversary of his execution. Ouch.
I can't understand. It's got to be the 80th.
Sorry?
79th.
79th. Yeah, it's getting up there.
79th. I thought you said 70th. So it's kind of disconcerting, but I can understand why. Right now, most of our socialists or left-leaning governments have been unsuccessful, at least in the perception of a lot of the people. Many people are turning back to the strongman type of politics, whether it's left, Stalin, because there's, believe it or not, nostalgia for Stalin in Russia. You have similar demonstrations a few years ago.
I believe it. Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, yeah. But even since Yeltsin was in power, there's always been a segment of that society that would prefer to return to the Soviets.
Yeah, but they're looking for a strong man to lead, whether it's the left or the right. Stalin was a dictator. Mussolini was a dictator. Hitler was a dictator. Franco was a dictator.
Yeah.
The last three I mentioned were fascist. The first one was communist, but Mao was a dictator. Okay.
I don't even know that. I wouldn't even class Mao as communist in the same regard as Stalin, but still. He was more.
The truth of it is, whether you're fascist or communist, you're not supposed to devolve into a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And yet each one of those systems always do.
So
they're looking for a strong leader that can sort of cut through a lot of the red tape and get things done. And so you know where you stand everywhere. When you get
I was looking, funnily enough, at the history of a lot of our societies, and in fact, actually, Britain has had has had only about 15 years of Labour government since 1945, and primarily Britain is very much a conservative government. The last 15 years have all been conservative. Several different conservative leaders, including some leaders that clearly didn't know what they were doing. And the same here in Canada. We've had a long history of conservatism.
Well, sure. But in our case, since the war, we've been mostly liberal. Since 1945 on, we've been mostly liberal.
And again, I was looking at the Christian Germany, and Germany has been mainly early on after the war was mainly social democrat, and has since then been, in the last 30 years, has been mainly Christian Democrat.
Well, Italy, on the other hand, has been mostly a communist or socialist. They have never been able to hold the parties together. They have so many fractious little parties that have to team up for a coalition government. Hugely corrupt, hugely corrupt system. So when you got somebody like Giorgia Meloni, who is now the prime minister of Italy, and she's far right, and she's talking about bringing order. That's what Mussolini did. Mussolini is famous for making the trains run on time and things happening more efficiently. He was dumb enough to go get himself involved in a war, but if he hadn't done any of that, he may have been quite a use to Italy, because it was a nation that couldn't get its act together at all. Mussolini came in and just pronounced a few orders and things got done.
Yeah, one of my kind of fondest memories of Italy is actually I came by bus to the local town to actually get onto a train, and I discovered that, hey, it's now 11 o'clock, and the train leaves at 4 o'clock. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go get lunch there. Spend a couple of hours, get lunch before I take my train back to London. And essentially what happened is I managed to get myself across this central square where the the main traffic flow was through that town, only to look back a few seconds later and honk, 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 honk. And what had happened is the policeman had put his cap on and marched away, and everybody lurched forward into this six kind of crossing, area. And nobody, and when I came back about 3 hours later, that's where they all still were. I remember.
The policeman got fed up and left.
Yeah, no, basically the police officer was just going to lunch, right?
Yeah, well, that's typical. Like I'll tell you my Italy story. I went, so I'm trying to get to Pisa, where the airport is. Yeah. Right. I was in Florence, and that's the only time I saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa, when the bus went by it.
Okay.
And so the bus is late. Right. So I get on the bus. The bus is late, and I'm looking at, oh shit.
Everything in Italy is always late.
Yeah. So it's like 2 o'clock. And my flight leaves at 2 o'clock. So at 2:08, I come to the counter and I says, I'm late. I don't know what you could do for me. My flight to London it was at 2 o'clock. I'm here late. She says, oh, you're lucky, sir. This is the flight is late. Oh, the flight is late. Oh, that's good. That's good. She says, oh no, the flight is late every day. Yeah. I can't say I remember the train being late, but hey, it was just that whole thing about at lunchtime, the copper puts his hat on, walks away, leaves hell behind him, Different cultures, different attitudes.
Yeah. And I guess that what you're saying there is, if Mussolini hadn't have been involved in World War II, essentially you may well have seen a different Italy today.
Yeah, because I hesitate to say it though, sometimes a centralized government is what it takes to sort of cut out all the corruption and get to the meat and potatoes of it. And I'm thinking of something like Cuba or something like that. Cuba was a very poor country, still is. And most of the people were uneducated. Castro gets in, and the first thing, everybody gets educated.
Yeah.
The state takes on responsibility for everybody's education. They start doing healthcare services for everyone. Yeah. And you can yell and scream all you want that that you got rid of your merchant class and all the other stuff, but unfortunately, a strong centralized government is if it is whatever motivates it, if it's motivated by the betterment of its people, then it can get things done. It wouldn't work here in Canada because we have a long tradition of democracy. We can take care of our own problems. We don't need that. Britain doesn't need it. France doesn't need it. Germany doesn't need it. Whatever. Italy doesn't need it either. And Giorgia Meloni has made sure that she has distanced herself from the fascists of the past. However, at the same time, this demonstration was going on in celebration of Mussolini. She was out in and around the same area, stump speeching for elections.
Here's the irony, of course, is that as you get up to, to get to the 80th anniversary of the death of Mussolini, you actually have to pass through the 79th. And if these people want Mussolini to be remembered in the way that they believe he should, then they have to start making noise early, so the 75th, the 78th, etc., etc. There's always been these odd people in Italy that have supported Mussolini.
Well, as I've said before, there are people who still support Hitler and Stalin and Mao.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in China, there was this wistful wanting for Mao again, despite all his transgressions and the ruin he brought upon China.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we should study each one of these political figures indifferently. What did Mussolini do? He was a vicious man. He was a dictator. If you disagree with him, you're going to die or get thrown in prison. I mean, he killed his own son-in-law. I think he murdered him. So that the fact is, actually, you have to take a look at what they accomplished and how they did it, and how they messed up. We know a lot about how they messed up, but did they do anything positive? And is there anything we can learn from that?
There's absolutely, because, for example, one of the very positives. Well, we all know about the Volkswagen car, where basically Hitler said said he needed a car for all Germans to be able to use, much in the vein that that Henry Ford had brought out the Model T as a car for every American to use. Hitler built the highways, but can you, the autobahns there? But can you imagine if there wouldn't have been much debate? In England, there was debate about, oh, you're taking my land. No, you will not. I'm standing here. And in fact, there's a motorway in England that goes around a farm, right? So it goes about a mile to either side of the farm. And there's actually just a farm smack in the middle between the two lanes, between the northbound lane and the southbound lane, or whichever one it was. And there's a couple of these instances in Britain. What would have happened in Germany is if you protest, you'd have probably got killed, and they'd build it through your house anyway.
Yeah, they would have done anything, so you wouldn't have had no right.
Yeah.
So I kind of celebrate the Brits for going around the farm. Respecting that farm. They could go other places. That's good. I think that's kind of in a sense a positive thing. But you can, if they expropriate your land here, they're going to get it anyhow. So there is no difference here. In Britain it works for the farmer, but here I don't think it would work for a farmer here. I'm not so sure though. Because look at the 407 and the 401 and the 410 and all of them. They just plow right through farmland.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, sometimes their people want to actually have the farm, use their farmland for their highway, because it means that that becomes valuable real estate.
Possibly, but in Canada right now, we don't have enough farmland.
Yeah,
definitely do not have.
That's another question.
The best farmland is in southern, among the best farmland in Canada is in southern Ontario. So we have to be very, very careful, very careful. And anyway, so we have this sort of nostalgic view of Mussolini happening. But when you have that nostalgic view and you put out all the good things he did or supposedly did, you have to counterbalance it with all the bad things he did, and they certainly outweigh all the good things he did.
Oh, yeah.
The idiot got himself involved in a war, invaded Ethiopia for what?
Yeah.
For what? You know?
Yeah.
Seriously? They
And lost
invaded Ethiopia and
and
Somalia.
lost a lot of troops doing it.
Yeah, the Ethiopians didn't have much to fight back. They fought back viciously.
Yeah.
And Haile Selassie went to the League of Nations and appealed to them. Of course, they didn't. They turned their back on them. Kind of like the Palestinians going to the United Nations and appealing to them, and they turning their back on the Palestinians. You know, the thoughts and prayers kind of thing is all they ever get. So the idea that Mussolini was a good guy and all that rubbish. If he had spent his resources in the country of Italy, that'd be fine. But he got this expansionist kind of ideology. Now, if you look at a guy like Franco, who was another fascist dictator, he didn't do that at all. He stayed home. He stayed in his home backyard.
Yeah.
And after the war they had, the civil war they had there, they had a lot of rebuilding to do. When I was there in the 70s, it was still a poor country. Now it's a prosperous country. Oh, sorry.
Well, but comparing Mussolini and Franco are two different things, right? Franco is,
They were both fascist dictators of the same era.
Yeah, they were both dictators, but they handled things a lot differently.
Yeah, but politically they were almost identical. They even almost wore the same sort of uniform.
Yeah, Franco was still in power to 1974.
5.
Okay.
1975. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I was there in 1974. He was still alive. He was still the boss.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was 74 or 75. I was thinking I was erring on the earlier side.
Well, and this is the claim to fame for Franco. During Franco, when Franco was there, and last year, 1974 or 73 or 74, I read that in the whole country, there was only there was under 100 murders in the whole country, under 100. I think it's something like 49 or something. Yeah. In the whole country. So that was their claim to fame, that they brought law and order. You had more murders in a day in Detroit. You know.
Yeah. But again, that's not untypical. If you'd have, in the 1970s, if you'd have gone around most European nations, you'd have probably had less than 50 murders in most European nations.
I'm not so sure. There was a fair amount in Britain at the time. There was, I don't think that would be anywhere close to what was happening in Italy, or there was lots of murders in Italy. I don't know the stats. All I knew is that they compared the stats with, and I remember reading the article that was the claim to fame, is their law and order was, and other crimes too, were very, very low, because there was huge consequences for committing crime. The deterrent effect was incredible. Not like here, where you go steal a guy's car and then get out and bail the next an hour later.
In fact, actually, when we're talking about these people, right? It was well known that, for example, we talked earlier about the Volkswagen car, but there was also the Volkshouses, that Hitler produced, basically basic housing that ensured that pretty well every German had a home.
Fortunately, Hitler wanted war from the very beginning when he got into power. He wanted war. That's why he built the Autobahn. That's why he gave everybody a job. That's why he got everybody on his side. It did all those things and had those massive things, and then walked into the SARS region of Germany, took it back chased the French and British out of there after World War I, So he bolstered their pride, gave them jobs, and created an autobahn because he wanted to go to war. He created infrastructure and all that because he wanted to go to war. One of the reasons why he did go to war is because his machinery and his mechanization was getting old. He'd have to change it all over, a massive expense, or go to war. So he went to war. And Mussolini, what did he do when he got in? He started straightening things out. He got everybody on his side, and then he marched off to war. The places like Greece, where he took a licking, and then he went to Ethiopia, where he got slapped around too.
Yeah, I know. And the interesting thing is about Ethiopia is not only did he get slapped around, it was his premier force that got slapped around.
Yeah, and I don't know,
by Bushmen. Yeah.
Oh,
all right. Anyway, let's move on from there.
My ribs hurt every time I go.
Right. This is an
Mehul Prajapati, a student at Wilford University, came to Canada from India in 2022. Recently, he started posting video guides for newcomers and students on Instagram to help them acclimate. So he's in big trouble, isn't he?
Yeah, because basically he basically posted a video about how to get free food.
Yeah, and he says he saved hundreds of dollars by using the student food bank. Basically, what that got misinterpreted as that he went around to other food banks and saved lots of money. So he says he saved hundreds of dollars a month by using the student food bank, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to exhaust your resources, and if you don't have anything left, then you go to the student food bank. Now, there's a few things about this article I don't like. Of course, there was an instant backlash. Here's a foreign student abusing the safeguards we put up for our average citizens and bragging about it. And of course, he's got a lot of hate mail. I wish they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I wish the hate mail the hate attitudes would stop. And in some respects about this is that I'm applauding this guy because he's making it. He's making other students in his situation understand what it's like to come to Canada and what he's giving them an idea about. I wouldn't say it as cheating the system, but how to benefit from the system.
Yeah, but food banks and food charities are the last resort. Okay.
We grant you that, and that was a definite error in his thinking.
Well, yeah, he's claimed to have saved hundreds of dollars a month by taking advantage of that. That is not the purpose of those food banks. Those food banks are there not to supply you with food every day, to save you money. It's not there to save you money. It's there for you when you need it. And so what he's definitely done is he's abused the student food bank. What he hasn't done or claimed to have done is use other soup kitchens or other foods that are allowed. Now here's the thing that the comment here from CEO of Second something. Secondhand, CEO of Secondhand, which is a food bank provider of that provides food banks and stuff with money. She says food banks and food charities are a last resort. I'm not familiar with stories of anyone going to a food bank that didn't need to. Oh, come on. Their name is Lori Nickel. How naive could you possibly be? Go to the food kitchen, go to the food line right here in Niagara Falls. You'll quickly suspect that there are people there that don't need the food bank at all, are going there and get an easy meal.
Yeah, I was there to drop off a donation a couple of months ago, and on that occasion when we dropped off the donation, there was a guy sitting in a BMW outside, just waiting to join the queue.
You see, when I was there one time, a guy had an expensive motorcycle. Drove up with an expensive motorcycle, got his grub, and drove off.
Yeah.
Now I asked the oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's killing my ribs. Anyway, I asked the food kitchen people there, the soup kitchen people there. I said they can't afford to lay judgment on anyone. If they start doing that, it takes too long and whatever. So they have to go by honor system. And of course, most of the people that are there because they need it. That's it's particularly nowadays. And they've said a lot of the food insecurity now is shifting over to seniors, people over 70 years old, who don't have enough pension or ODSP or anything to be able to live and eat too. So pardon me, geez, but the idea that food that they're not familiar with any stories about people who didn't go to a food bank because they didn't need to. Oh, come on, lady. Seriously? I hate it when people do that.
Yeah.
I hate it when people just outright lie or pretend they know.
Well, Laurie Parliament makes an interesting point that foreign students, of course, are supposed to be able to afford to be here. So, so she doesn't applaud him showing others how to save money. There are people that actually need that food. That's very true. There are people that actually need that food. What I was saying, I would applaud him having a video series that was about, helping other students that were in his situation. The question about going to food banks is a different matter.
Well,
if he's got money, which foreign students
most of the videos he makes is about how to do taxes, how to do this.
Yeah.
So he's trying to help them all. But this part of it is this is how to game the system. You want to save some money? Go to the student food bank.
Yeah. It's a bad thing to have done, but
This boils it right down here. Prajapati didn't specify that the program is the last resort for hungry students, something that drew ire online. Instead, he said it's how he saves hundreds of bucks every month. So obviously he's gaming the system. Obviously he's abusing the system, and he quite rightly needs to be knocked down a peg or two and put out there. However, the rest of his videos are how students can acclimatize themselves to North America are probably just fine. But that is quite obviously he's gaming the system, and he feels terrible. And then he goes on to say that, well, I come from a poor family, a family of humble means, and blah, 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 not too much money. Yeah, I don't know. When you go and say, I save hundreds of bucks by going to the student food bank, that is very clear. He's abusing the system.
Yeah. I've never eaten at a food bank in my life, or a soup kitchen in my life. And I would think that most people would be kind of, I don't know, it would be very much a thing of last. It'd be desperation that drive you to it, right?
There's got to be a level of pride. I could, for many years, I could have got one of those cards, parking cards for disabled, right? I could get one of those because of my knees, my hip, and all the other things that gone wrong with me. Things are working pretty good now, but for years I could have got one. I refused it. I refused to get one. People told me you should get one of those things because I was having trouble with mobility, and the doctor was willing to give it to me, but I won't. I would not, because I don't think I'm bad enough. There are a lot of people worse off than me. And I get sick and tired of watching people with big trucks pull into those big wide spots and a person jump out and run into the store. because they're using grandma's parking disabled card. So there's got to be a little bit of dignity here. And this guy's got to search in his soul for a little bit of dignity. Come on, man. You were saving hundreds of bucks where that food should have gone to other people.
Yep. Okay. So
well, I think he's learned a lesson. Poor chump.
Yeah. Okay. So Niagara Falls, he should have learned a lesson. And going on from there, Niagara Falls MPP Wayne Gates says that he continues to push for his community to get the fair share of the provincial funding to help build more houses.
Well, yeah, I expect that Wayne Gates would chime in, being our MPP, and he's demanding that we get our fair share of developmental money. We lost out on $45.2 million because we didn't have enough housing starts. But he points out that the city of Niagara Falls has done everything it should have done, everything possible. He's saying that it's not his fault or our fault the developers haven't developed. Everything's there, ready for them to go.
Well, it arguably is the fault of Niagara Falls, because I'd say that the Niagara Falls, as with any city, should be on the backs of developers. Hey, when are you starting?
How are you going to force developer to develop?
Yeah, but in a way, there has to be an ongoing communication about, not only the rubber stamp at the point when you give the bylaw alteration, the meeting after that public meeting has been held, shouldn't be the end of the public involvement.
It is not the end. It is not the end. And I think he's right here. For Wayne Gates to compliment Niagara Falls City Council for doing what they're supposed to do is a rare thing, I think. Oh, pardon me. If the City Council had left a stone unturned, he would have pointed it out. But he's saying they've left no stone unturned and making it possible for all the developers. You have to face this issue. Most of the developers, all the companies, the developers were geared up to have normal housing growth. That's what it's been like for years.
Yeah.
Suddenly, there's this huge incentive to build more and more houses everywhere, all over the place. Right now, you've got developers that are way understaffed for that challenge.
Yeah.
They never were set up to have a multiplication of possible places to build. They are short of tradesmen. They are short of material. They are short of everything. And you say, okay, here you go. Here's all this land. You can develop it now. Well how am I going to develop it?
There's an interesting thing. If you look behind Dairy Queen at Ferry and Stanley Junction there, where they're supposed to be building a 12-story hotel, a 30-floor condo unit, and a mixed-use office and housing unit. There's now a great big hole in that ground. There's been in there for the last 6 months, a hole in the ground. You could argue they've started, but hey, they've done nothing more than dig a hole in the ground.
That's an old construction company trick. Dig the hole, then leave it. And once you dug the hole, that means you started. And I work for a pool company, and that's what they would do. They would sign the contract. They go into the person's backyard, dig the hole, and then go off. So that hole is sitting there for a month or a month and a half before anybody does anything to it. And the persons are saying, are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? And finally get around to coming back to it. But as many holes the thing is to dig as many holes as possible. You've only got one installation crew, right? And you've got 5 holes dug in this particular city, right? Yeah. So you do this one, then you do this one, and you do this one. And if you run into big trouble, like we had in a couple of times, then that even gets delayed even further.
Well, yeah, but you see, for example, the other project at Niagara, the supposed Niagara 77, they've not even moved, they've not even moved a digger in there to actually come anywhere near digging a hole.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's going to take an incredible amount of resources to build that.
Yeah.
It will probably take almost every tradesman there is in the region to go after that. You're going to have to get your glazers, your electricians, your pipe fitters, your plumbers. You're going to have to get all your laborers. They're going to have to be there in mass.
Oh yeah, I know.
Sorry. So the very idea is, we've done everything right. All we have to do is get the developers. But you can't make developers develop something if they don't have the equipment, the money, and the manpower. And I think that gets overlooked all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. Is
well,
that
actually, what should have
all of a sudden, Ford wants all this. Trudeau jumps on the bandwagon too because he sees that Poilievre is making ground on him by talking about housing. So all of a sudden he's into housing, and he wants everything done really quick too. Get it done, because he wants a feather in his cap. So that, but as I said before, you cannot suddenly do that and expect sudden expansion of developers' wherewithal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because
the developers are built to do X amount of units every year. And then suddenly you say, okay, well, we got 10 times X now. Build it. With what?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a problem. And especially if you're going to build you're doing a big development that's bigger than anything else in the region, as you said, that's going to take up a significant chunk of our resources. Anyway, I think we can leave it at that point.
Yeah.
For today.
Anyway, I will say, of course, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. I don't see anything I have no optimistic forecast of what's going to happen in Gaza or Ukraine. They just supplied Ukraine with a lot more weapons. So we know that war is going to be drawing out for a very long time. I don't think there's going to be any difference in the amount. They're going to be the World War I type of thing. They're going to gain a yard, lose a yard at the cost of gallons of blood. So I think the world should just get on it and get that peace deal done as fast as possible. Right now, all it is arms manufacturer making lots of money, lots and lots of money. I mean, which is sickening.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
Let's just pray for peace.